Traveling to Egypt turned out to be the toughest assignment I've ever encountered as a journalist. Once I arrived, it felt like no one was willing to talk to me. I checked out the Suez Canal, got a look at the control tower, and watched how things worked there. But it was really during the court sessions in Ismailia, listening to the lawyers argue about what happened on the ship, that we uncovered a lot of new information. A huge cargo ship is stuck in the Suez Canal, which is one of the world's most vital waterways, moving everything from oil to everyday goods. They initially blamed high winds for the situation, but that explanation never really sat right with me, especially since the area tends to see strong winds about half the year. The blockage might not just be bad weather, it could be due to a mechanical issue or human error, and there's an investigation going on to get to the bottom of it. Court documents showed that the pilots were caught up in some pretty intense arguments, trading insults and all. If this blockage goes on for more than a day, it could really shake up global shipping and energy markets. So, how did this incident even happen? The ship is massive, about as long as the Empire State Building is tall, and it has effectively blocked the canal since it ran aground on Tuesday. A lot of people don't realize just how fragile global trade really is. Hi there, I'm Kit, a journalist with Bloomberg, and I thought it was essential to head to Egypt to cover this story. I had a chance to visit the Suez Canal Authority, chat with senior pilots, attend several court sessions, and see the ship owners' lawyers argue, for the first time, that the Suez Canal pilots might share some responsibility. I'm Matthew Campbell, a reporter and editor for Bloomberg Business Week. These days, modern ships, no matter their size, come equipped with a Voyage data recorder right on the bridge, which captures all audio. In the case of the Ever Given, just like in many maritime incidents, the recordings from the VDR played a crucial role in figuring out what really happened. The urgent task of freeing a cargo ship stuck in the Suez Canal, which caused a significant global trade route to come to a standstill, resulted in a massive traffic jam. This led to a ripple effect of disruption in international commerce, affecting countless individuals and businesses that could potentially claim financial losses due to the events surrounding the Ever Given in late March. As a result, the bridge recordings from the VDR became extremely sensitive and important evidence. Over the past few decades, ships have generally gotten much larger, with a few exceptions. The Ever Given itself, along with its value, fuel, and the approximately 17,000 containers it was carrying, is estimated to be worth around $1 billion, making it one of the largest objects humanity has ever sent across the seas. A skilled crew of 25, led by Captain Krishnan Kanthavel, an experienced mariner from Tamil Nadu, was on board. The ship set off from Asia and was headed for Rotterdam in just a couple of weeks. In the Suez Canal, ships usually passed in the early morning hours. The Ever Given was coming out of the Red Sea and entering the canal during some pretty rough conditions, with strong winds and a severe sandstorm. It was so bad that a few vessels decided to hold off on entering that day. Captain Kanthavel had the final say on whether to go ahead, since that's always up to the captain. But let's be real, there's a ton of financial pressure in these situations, especially since the shipping industry runs just-in-time schedules. A captain like him would definitely be aware of just how much money is at stake when it comes to delivering cargo to Europe on time. Looking at a satellite image, the Suez Canal seems like a pretty straight shot through the desert, with a couple of lakes along the way. You might think sailing through it would be easy, but sailors and captains we talked to said it's actually really stressful. The canal is narrow in spots, only around 200 meters wide, and quite shallow, so any mistake could lead to trouble. When big ships enter these tight areas, they usually bring in a pilot who knows the water well and can help the captain and crew navigate safely around hazards like tricky currents or submerged objects. Pilots don't actually steer the ship, they give instructions on the best path to take. Talking between the pilot, the captain, and the crew on the Ever Given wasn't easy. The crew mostly spoke English, while the Egyptian pilots primarily used Arabic, which made communication tricky. Several people mentioned the tense interactions between the captain, the crew, and local Egyptian officials during their Suez transits. Even though the captain is usually in charge, they have to give up some control to the local pilots who are guiding the ship through the canal. The shipping industry sometimes mentions that Suez pilots have a mixed reputation. There are stories about them requesting cigarettes or other favors for their cooperation. All of this adds to a pretty charged atmosphere. On that particular day, the Ever Given entered the canal with strong winds at its back. Being 400 meters long and over 50 meters high above the water, it had a huge surface area for the wind to act on, which made it sway like a sail. Legal investigations later revealed that there was a disagreement between the two Egyptian pilots on the bridge about how fast to go and the weather conditions. When the captain tried to step in and mediate, one pilot even threatened to leave their post. According to the voyage data recorder, one pilot called for the ship to go full speed ahead, hitting about 13 knots. While speeding up can improve steering in normal conditions, in such a narrow canal, it turned out to be a terrible mistake due to Bernoulli's principle, which states that faster-moving water reduces pressure and can pull the ship closer to the bank. The pilots quickly ordered sharp turns to the left or right, but one turn was too drastic, causing the Ever Given's front to get stuck in the sand and halt the ship. It ended up lodged in a southern part of the canal, close to the entrance, in a narrow stretch with no way around. The ship grounded at an angle, with both its bow and stern wedged against the banks, completely blocking the channel. By the end of the first day, around 100 ships were stuck waiting to get through, and that number kept climbing. Goods worth about $10 billion were stuck each day, unable to move. Most items in any given room probably came in via ship, with many passing through the Suez Canal, which made this blockage a major headache for companies that rely on this route. The Ever Given, a giant cargo ship measuring 400 meters, disrupted global trade. Usually, around 50 ships carrying 12% of the world's trade would pass through each day. The vessel crashed into the bank so hard that its bow embedded itself 6 or 7 meters into the rocky sand. Two small tugboats got there quickly but couldn't get the ship moving. The Suez Canal Authority, spearheaded by Chief Pilot Captain El Sayed and Chairman Rabi, came up with a plan that involved digging since just pulling wouldn't do the trick. Early photos showed a small excavator looking tiny next to the ship, scooping away sand in what seemed like a hopeless effort, turning the operator into a bit of an internet star. Smit, a top Dutch salvage firm, was brought on by the ship's owners to help out. Salvage teams usually get a cut of the cargo's value they save, and they were looking at a potential multi-million-dollar fee for freeing the Ever Given. Smit's team arrived on March 25, just 2 days after the ship got stuck, and suggested offloading some containers to make the ship lighter. However, the Suez Canal Authority was hesitant because unloading could take a long time, dragging out the blockage even more. Eventually, they agreed to keep towing it until a crane could arrive, then unload if needed. With billions losing value each day, there was a real sense of urgency. On March 28, powerful tugboats with 200 to 300 tons of pulling capacity showed up, just in time with a supermoon that caused higher tides and more buoyancy. This 2-day window, from March 28 to 29, turned out to be the best chance to free the ship. The rear started to budge first, but the front stayed stuck. To keep the front from swinging across the canal and causing more damage, cables were secured from the bow to the shore. Smith's team also added ballast water to the back, which slightly lifted the bow. When combined with the tugboats and the tide, it finally freed the ship. The relief was palpable, horns were blaring, and the Egyptian dredging crew was cheering. Once released, the Ever Given was taken to the Great Bitter Lake for a legal standoff, with the Suez Canal Authority demanding over $900 million in compensation for salvage and reputational losses. After some back and forth, that demand was lowered to $550 million, though the final settlement was probably lower but not disclosed. This whole incident served as a stark reminder of how crucial shipping is to global supply chains, and how one mistake can disrupt a vital route for world trade.